Hello everyone, welcome to this second episode of the series on reading Layamon Brut. Today we will meet Aeneas and follow his journey from Troy to Italy. Nu saith mit loftzonge, there wes on Lerden prest. Als waar the book spaketh, there he to bisne inom. The Griekes heften Troje mit Terne bewonen, and that land I west, and the Lerden of Slauen, and for the Rakadom of Menelaus quern, Elene was I hoten, al therdis wief, da Paris Alexandra mit pretrentia bewon. For hier weren on Anna die 100,000 dead. Out of than fecht, there was ferndelitje stoor, Aeneas the Duke, mit Ermthen at wond. Now he says with a praise song, a song of praise. This usually refers to psalms or hymns, but in this case, I think pretty clearly it refers to the epic verse. He who was among the people, or in the land, a priest, referring back to Layamon himself again. Just as the book says, which he took as his exemplar. The Greeks had conquered Troy with injury or pain, something to that effect, and still carrying this verb over, so they had laid waste to that land and completely slain or utterly slain the people. This prefix of often has that sort of intensifying effect. And this was for the avenging, the Rakadom, the avenging of Menelaus's queen. She was called Helen, the foreign woman, or the foreign lady, literally other peopleish, the other peopleish woman, whom Paris Alexandra mit pretrench bewon, whom Paris Alexander, with devices or stratagems of some sort, overcame. On account of her, or for her, there were in one day 100,000 dead. Something else you'll notice about this text is that it does have a very high body count. Out from the fight, which was fiendishly violent or very strong, Aeneas, the leader, it gives us the word duke, but it's from the Latin dux, which just means a leader of some sort, usually a military leader, and that's probably the case here. So Aeneas, the leader, the general, at wonder, he went out, he escaped with misery or with hardship, with distress. Never der he boten Anna Sunne, there was mit him isund. Ascanius was he hoten, never der he bern no ma. And this Duke, mit his drichte, to the Rasa him droog. Of Kunne and of Fulke, the fulleder than Duke, of Monne and of Achter, the he to the Rasa bruchte. Of 20 gold shippen, he good liche fulde. And the shippen foren wieder, jan daar wintre de sa, mid wolknen and mid wedere, he thulleden when seethers, and mid muchelure kar, here to land bekommen. So, because in Middle English multiple negatives in a sentence do not make a positive, they just make the sentence really negative, this would say something to the effect of, he, referring to Aeneas, had not but one son. So he only had one son, who was safe with him, or unharmed with him. So they both escaped intact. Ascanius, he was called, referring back to Aeneas again. He had no more son. So he had no other sons but Ascanius. And this general, with his army, drew himself, but here we can take this verb just to mean he went, really. He went to the sea, and then we're going to jump down a few lines to line 51 for our verb here. And 20 good ships he goodly filled, or he filled greatly of his kin and of his people, of the people who followed the Duke, and of men and of possessions which he, Aeneas, brought to the sea. So he's filled the ships. These are the people and their possessions that he's filled the ships with, essentially. And the ships fared or went wide throughout the winter sea. With this can just mean the heavens, but here I think the sense is the clouds, particularly the storm clouds. So with clouds and storms and with weather, they suffered hardships, troubles, unfortunate circumstances, really. Bad things happened to them. It was difficult. And with very much sorrow, they came to land. On Italy her kommen to land, the Rome nu onståndeth. Felle ger under sunnen, nas jet Rome bewonnen. An hevede Aeneas the Duke, mit his drichtfolke, wieden I walken, jend that weed water. Moni land beroen, redes him trokeden. On Italy her kom on land, that him was sequem. Athon lande he fund mete, and he hine mit monship bewon, and mit gold and mit gersum, and he grithliche spak. I thar tior he erde land, thar the see washeth that sund, full nech than ilke stode, the Rome nu stondeth. In Italy they came to land, where Rome now stands. However, but many years under the sun was not Rome yet achieved. Achieved would be better than conquered here, because it's saying that Rome just isn't here yet. So Rome wouldn't be around for quite a number of years yet to come. And had Aeneas the general, with his warrior people, his army of people, they had walked is the word here, but considering they're going by sea, we'll translate this as journeyed. So they journeyed far throughout the wide ocean. They rode umber here is about, so they rode about many lands, around many lands. This is an interesting turn of phrase here. Redes him trokeden, counsels failed him. So Aeneas didn't know what to do. On Italy, or in Italy, he came to land. That was pleasing to him. In this land, or in that land, he found food. And things get a little bit confusing here, because the land is grammatically masculine. So we have two masculine pronouns in the same clause, but they're each referring to something different. So he, Aeneas, conquered or obtained it, the land, with monshiper, with manship, with honor, with decency, with his heroism and his good warrior-like behavior, and also with gold and with treasure. And he spoke peacefully. But we probably should be a bit careful in translating this word grithliche as peacefully, because it doesn't just mean that he happened to be speaking quietly. Grith refers to the peace of a land that is at peace, so some sort of truce. So Aeneas, in speaking peacefully, it means that he's seeking out truces and agreements and treaties with the people in the land. In the Tiber he went ashore, there where the sea washes the sand. Full nigh, or very near, the very place where Rome now stands. The king was I hoten Latin, there on than land was. He was and richer, and he was redesfull. Midwinter he was bewaved, swo hit wolde God. There kom Aeneas, and greater than all the king, and he hine fair and feng, mid allen his folke. Muche land he him jef, and mare him behete, and long there sea kute, Siden and Weden, there quern hit of thuchte, natheless he hit tholede. So the king was called Latin, or Latinus, who was in the land. He was high or noble, and I'm hesitant to take this as rich. Riche in Old English refers to a kingdom, so let's just say he was powerful. He was high and powerful. He was noble and powerful. And he was readsful. He was full of counsel, well advised. This next line, so literally he was clothed or he was wrapped with winters. So he's seen many winters. He's very old. As God wished it. Aeneas came there and greeted the old king. And here we have a similar situation where we have multiple masculine pronouns in the same clause but referring to different people. So he, referring to Latinus, received him, Aeneas, fairly, courteously, generously, with all his people, that being all the Trojans who have come with Aeneas. Much land King Latinus gave him, Aeneas, and promised him more. Along the sea coast, far and wide. Seden and Weden essentially mean the same thing. They're synonymous. And sayings like, little phrases like this were quite common in Old English, and some of them still survive in modern English. Phrases like time and tide, tide being an Old English word for time. The Queen, yes, here again we have another impersonal construction like we saw last week. So, ofthuchte. It seems, and off, like I said before, it has it can have an intensifying force. It can also have a negating force. No, not a negating force, but it makes things seem more negative. So it gives words more of a negative sense. So it seemed bad to the queen, essentially, is what's going on here. So she thought ill of it. It seemed ill to her, this arrangement where her husband, the king, is giving all this land to Aeneas. Nevertheless, she suffered it. So she endured it. The king hefde anedukte, than him was swithe der, eneum he behete to haben to weave, and after his die all his drichliche land, for he nefde nanne son, the saror was his herte. That maiden was I hoten Lavine, sethen he was leudene queen. Fair was the women, and winsome here monnen. Ach Turnus was I hoten that was of Tuscane duke, that loved that maiden, and here monshippe bed, that he would haben to hen are queen. So the king had one daughter, who was very dear to him. He, referring to Turnus, sorry, not Turnus, we haven't met him just yet, he, referring to Latinus, promised her, Lavinia, to Aeneas, to have as wife, to have as his wife. And after his day, so after King Latinus's day, after King Latinus has died, all his lordly land as well. So this is all covered under this verb behete. So all this is promised to Aeneas. Aeneas has essentially been made Latinus's heir. For he, Latinus, had not no son. So he had no son. The sorrier, the sorer, the more sorrowful was his heart. The maiden was called Lavinia. Afterwards, she was queen of the people. She was, or the woman was fair, so she was beautiful, and this gives us the word winsome. We'll take it here as something like gracious, or maybe even generous to her men, so to her people. But there was, or he was called Turnus, who was of Tuscany, the leader, the general, who was the ruler of Tuscany, who loved the maiden, and had this is the word bidan, which usually means to request, but here it does seem to mean something like he offered or promised honor to her, or the honor to her, that he wished to have her as high, or as a noble queen, as the high queen. There come that word to him that was Sweden quoth, that the king Latin gef Lavine his dochter Aeneam to our broeder, for here was his dear bairn. There was Turnus sorry and sorrowful on his moder, for he here hefte swithe iloved, and lovething here behete. Where marked Turnus, mit ternen he was he drevet, with a name he nom anfecht, that was feindlich strong, hond with honde, fuchten the here men. Terne was on kompe, there Turnus fell, mit mädchen to heaven, his monship was the lasse. So then came that word to him, Turnus, the word that was widely known, that the king, Latinus, gave Lavinia, his daughter, to Aeneas as a bride. For she, Lavinia, was his, Latinus's, dear child. Then was Turnus sorrowful, or distraught, grieved, and sorrowful in his mind, for he had greatly loved her, and promised her the love thing. That might sound a bit bland and uninspiring, but as a compound, love thing would mean something like a pledge. So he had pledged his love to her. Maybe even he was betrothed to her. Turnus made war. He was wounded, he was harmed with injuries. He took a fight against Aeneas. That fight, which refers back to Fecht, was fiendishly cruel or violent, was extremely, let's just go with violent, describing the fight. I mean, strong, it means strong, but it's probably less conventional nowadays to describe a fight as strong. Hand against hand, the high men fought. Sorrow or injury, harm was on the field where Turnus fell. So cut up with swords. This word terhiewen is quite forceful. So hiewen means to cut, to hew, but then tu has the sense of apart, into pieces, as a prefix used in composition like this. So he was cut into pieces with swords. This might look like the word mace, but it's a false friend. It's not the word mace referring to the club sort of weapon. As far as I know, that word was borrowed from French in the 14th century. This comes from Old English, this word that we have here, which is mecha and means sword. So his honour, referring to Turnus, his honour was the less for having been killed by Aeneas in this way, or by Aeneas's soldiers. We're not actually told, are we, that Aeneas himself did the killing here. Aeneas nom Lavine ler flice to wefer. He was king, and her queen, and Kinelond her welden, in a grith and in a frith, and freliche loveden. Serthen Aeneas Lavine hefedi nomen, and the lerdene bewinnen. He makede en stronge kastel, mid starke stone wall. Lavine hecht his Layamon, then a kastel he kleped Lavignon. That was for here worthshipe, well that he here uther. Fair winter he hevede that weave, mid worthshipe to welden. After dan 4th year he was dead, his frenden hit of thuchten. So Aeneas took Lavinia, dearly or lovingly, as his wife. He was king and she was queen, and they ruled the kingdom in peace or in truce. And in peace, Grith and Frith is like Weden and Seden. They're essentially synonyms that go together as a pair because they sound good together. They rhyme. So in peace and truce, law and order, and they loved nobly. Afterwards, after Aeneas had taken Lavinia as his wife, and won over, I suppose, would be a better way of saying it, because, so he won over the people. He made a strong castle with strong stone walls. Lavinia, his beloved, was called. So he called the castle Lavinium. That was for her honour that he granted her well, or that he gave her well. 4 winters he had he had the lady, the wife, and we'd take it. We could translate this as wife here because they are married, with honour to rule. After the 4th year, he was dead. It seemed sad, unfortunate. It seemed ill to his friends, which might be to understate the case a bit, but there you have it. On that note, we might leave the text here for now, and we'll pick up next time at line 101, where we will read what becomes of Aeneas's descendants. Thank you for watching the video. Once again, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions as to how I could improve these videos, please let me know, and I will endeavour to take any advice or suggestions on board. I'll see you next time.